Hi everybody, this is Joe. I'm here in my Houston, Texas garden. I'm in zone 9A and this is the very last day of September, and I'm going to give you a look at my sort of shady side of the garden, although there's a little bit of patch here that has the sun. And then earlier in the week I did a whole video on the whole middle sunny spot, and so you might look for that also. Well, I'm starting on an all-star plant, which is a hyacinth bean vine. I've talked about this before. It is the easiest thing in the world to grow. Just a big old bean. I mean, that's like 6 beans worth right there. And it has grown all summer. It has bloomed all summer, even in the heat, even in the drought. It has been an amazing, amazing plant. And you can see how much it covers, because up under here there's a very ugly rooster hidden by it. And so you can see it really is a very thick growing vine. And so I highly recommend it. And as I have said before, if you are growing a garden with a bunch of kindergartners who need a big fat seed to handle and that will get very instant satisfaction, this is a great choice. Now the next thing I have here is a castor bean plant, and I may be moving it, but I'll show you why I like it. I grew this big, it's got a big stalk from literally one bean. Now it's very poisonous, so I do not recommend this for children or even around animals, especially dogs. I mean, it would pick the seed pod up. But I love the sort of bronzy look and the red veining and the really cool red stems. But I really grew it for these kooky seed pods that sort of look like Dr. Seuss maybe designed them. And so they're really cool, and this is a fun plant to grow. And I wouldn't even be thinking about removing it before the winter, except it's encroaching on this native Texas tree that I am growing. It's just so beautiful, and I need it. It needs more room. So this is a Texas kidney wood, and look how pretty it's blooming. I really haven't grown it that much, maybe 2 years, and I wasn't sure quite when it was going to bloom. I hadn't had a big bloom so far. So you can see it's definitely blooming, although it seems to be down here and the tippy top of the tree not blooming at all. So I'm not sure. Now most people will grow this as a shrub, but I've cut it down to 3 trunks and supported it so it wouldn't flop over. And let me show you from around this side how nice that looks as a tree with the straight trunk and then a big poof. I moved it was a big support actually that had more of that hyacinth bean vine on it, but you can see it's this beautiful shape, but it was sort of getting crowded out on this side, and this is crowding it out on that side. So I kind of think that's gonna go to give that some more space. But that's a native Texas tree, and it is also a butterfly host. Now the next native plant, or 2 more native plants here next to it. This is little blue stem, which I sort of shudder to think what big blue stem is, because this is definitely taller than me. And it's super scruffy. I wanted to grow it because it's native. It has never looked better than this. It's a hot mess. I might move it at least to the back of something so that I'm growing it. It's habitat for native plants, but I don't have to look at how messy it is. The next native plant that I've got here is false indigo, which has gotten enormous. You can see how big it is, and it has, except for the tiny purple flower that was on it when I bought it, I think, it has never bloomed. This is 2 years of no flowers, and I did cut it back. You can see I cut it back, I guess about 3 feet high in the spring. And it just is goofy. And so if anybody has any advice on making a false indigo look better than this, please, please tell me in the comments, because I'm desperate for that to not be so ugly. Next to it, I've got such a pretty batch of amaryllis. Now it was getting, we live in Houston, it's hurricane problems here, right? And so we finally put in a generator, but once a week it runs a test and it blows hot exhaust out of this. And so that's why I have this little thing I'm building a new one. And by I mean my husband is going to build me a new one. The last one kind of rotted. But it's really to sort of shield these plants from this blasting hot air during the summer in particular. So I have trimmed a bunch of terrible looking leaves off of this and off of this crinum as well, just to make it look nicer. So back here, I'm happy to report, I've got this lovely fleece flower, and it took a hit in this heat, and you can see back here how it's just, crispy. But it's coming back, and I even have a little bud here going. And so I'm super happy. I'm gonna wait. It's still 5-6 days ago, it was still 98.6 degrees in my yard. And so I'm not gonna cut things severely back. But as soon as it hits, like the 70s, I'm gonna cut that back and see if I can get it to look nice, but I don't wanna mess with it. I've learned my lesson this year, pruning things when it was really hot, and I've killed some stuff. Here's my little native milkweed that's looking really pretty. I've got lots and lots of aphids. Can you see the aphids on there? Let me see if I can get them into focus. My phone doesn't want to focus on it. But this is normal. These aphids will not hurt a milkweed. That's a very normal thing. They won't hurt it, and the cleanup crew of ladybugs will come, and I think there are a couple other things. They will come and clean that up. It will not hurt your plants. Sometimes it makes it kind of sticky looking and not terrific in a aesthetic way, but don't worry about aphids on your milkweeds. This milkweed, look at this wonderful, see there's a jillion aphids on there, but there's also a big seed pod, which is fun. And then you can see I have an absolute ocean. Oh, there's Miss Doubtfire. Hello, Mrs. Hello. Go for it. Say hello to the people. Uninterested. You can see now I've been gone so much this summer, and it's been so hot I haven't done a lot of work. You can see the ocean of purple sweet potato vine that has just taken over its bananas. And so the next video you see of this, as in this afternoon, after I turn this off, I'm taking most of this out. I'm ready to plant some things in here, uncover some things. It's just out of control, but it's so pretty, and I feel like it's shading the ground. It's taking over a little bit. This is that lance leaf coreopsis that's got a couple of, it's got a little, oh my goodness, look at this. Okay, let's hope you're a queen. I'm not sure, I'll have to look up. I think that is I've only seen one monarch in my yard on their travels through to Mexico, and I'm not good enough to know the difference between a queen and a monarch caterpillar. I feel like that's a queen because it's got these extra little antenna in the back, but I'm gonna have to look that up. But this guy should not be here. They should not be making new babies on the way to Mexico. Their job is to just make it to Mexico, and they should be breeding and making new monarchs in the spring. So if that's a queen, that's awesome. If it's not, I am going to, no matter how terrible it sounds, I'm gonna hope that a wasp comes and gets it, but I'll check that out later. Now, one of the things I did was I on purpose let this get kind of big around this anise hyssop, which is, what's the other name of that? Anyway, it'll come to me in a minute. It looks pretty terrible. But if you look where I've let it be in the shade, it doesn't look so bad, see? And so I'm hoping that a little bit of this cover, and it should cool off in a week, it should cool off, and hopefully I can cut the ratty tops off and just leave some of this pretty new growth that has been sort of protected a little bit, I think, from this with this giant sweet potato vine. Now, I was gonna show you something back here. Let me climb back through. Climbing. This is that beautiful, enormous, unkillable crinum lily. It's a spider lily. It's a spider lily, native to Texas. I shockingly still have a dahlia. It doesn't look great up here, but a dahlia that's still alive. And so if you know whether it will, it's in a pot, and if you know whether it will survive and bloom in the fall, I would love to know. I'm very interested if that will keep going. Now this is a gentle Hermione rose that, again, I've just let it sort of get covered up and shaded by this vine and let the ground be shaded so it wouldn't dry out so quickly. And it is gotten some new growth on it. It's kind of wrinkly and sad, but I can see there's a tiny bud. And so I'm happy to report that that is still alive. Now the thing back here, I got two fun things to show you back here, three fun things to show you. So this is that dwarf Barbados cherry, and it is blooming. I didn't know quite when it had the biggest bloom, and it looks like fall. It's bloomed off and on all year, but it looks like fall is the best. You can see little buds all over it. So I think that is just as sweet as it can be. Now the next thing, so that's native to Texas. The next thing I'm so excited about is a Duranta. This is also a native Texas plant. Look how gorgeous. This is the first flowers I've had on it because I think I have it in too much shade back here. But oh my goodness, isn't that gorgeous? And I think you can see it's huge. It's got all this and it has not bloomed. I think this is just too much shade. This is what I'm gonna dig up and I'm gonna plant over in the middle, over here, where that buddleia was not happy. And so when it cools off really cool, I will dig this huge plant up and put it in a different part of the garden. So hopefully it will hold that space. And actually the buddleia kind of has, I'm now realizing, kind of has the same shape flower. And so I think it'll be a great addition over there to hold that spot, which is pretty empty right now. Here's the third fun thing. So native, another native plant. This is porterweed, and my porterweed has looked, this one's been better here in the shade. It's sort of half shade. The front yard has not been blooming, but as soon as it stopped hitting 95 or stopped hitting 100 every day, it started to bloom, and in the front yard, it's blooming like crazy. So I really think that it just sort of shut down in that heat, and so I'm very happy with that. I think it's really pretty, and you can see all the little new bloom spikes all along it. So I'm hoping that it'll be just spectacular in a week or two. All right, let me climb back. Oh, and also, here we go. All of that green is weeds. Weeds. So I think that, this sweet potato vine has also helped with weed suppression. Not everywhere, but it definitely has helped. And I've got my little self-sown gomphrena called Fireworks, which you can see why. It's just lovely. And so when I pull all this out, all this vine out, I'll kind of come to see what's under it all. And so I will leave that for sure. And then I've got Cousin It, which again, left unchecked, is covered in sweet potato vine and surrounded by weeds. Now, I'm gonna go back. So we got 1.5 inches of rain last week. I have not pruned my roses, which I normally would do on the 1st of September, but it was too hot. I didn't dare distress them by pruning them. And so I didn't. And we got 1.5 inches of rain, and it cooled off by about 5 degrees. And it's just doing its little best. It's like the little engine that could. This is Mrs. B.R. Cant. They're small and scruffy, but it is doing its very best to bloom. And then all those red berries up there, let's see if I can get some of those in focus. No, it won't let me do it. All these red berries, that's a weed. That is a big, old, massive weed. And so that's all gotta come down, but I've gotta climb out to do it. So again, more more results, consequences of having awesome vacations is you come home to your garden that's pretty messy. Oh, now let me show you back here. I've got a couple more Texas natives. Now this is agapanthus, and that's amaryllis. And these kind of things do pretty well. And then that's a crinum lily that I think is probably a native crinum lily to Texas, but I'm not sure. What I've planted back here, and it's very slow to get established, but this is the Gulf Coast penstemon. And so I just keep watering it. It's is full of weeds. I keep watering and watering and watering, trying to get these to grow. And I've got several back here. I'm trying to get started. And then a little further back in here is a native grass that grows in the shade. It's called, what's it called? Let me think. Inland sea oats, that's what it's called. So in the spring, in the summer, you get these beautiful seed heads that are green, and then in the fall, they turn golden brown. And I think because, oh, look at this weed. I think because it has been so hot, I think if I had come out here every, couple of days and watered this, it would be standing up nicely. But I think because of the drought and my neglect, it has sort of fallen over. But it's a butterfly host plant. I think it's a host plant for gray hair streaks, which are some of my favorite cute little gray hair streaks. Now, this Cape Plumbago has been out here. Look, more weeds, all different kinds, y'all. It's like a weed tour. This Cape Plumbago has been out here for years and years, way, way before I put this garden in at all. And this is probably the best that it has ever bloomed. You can see it's getting a lot of sun right now. Sorry, I'm filming in the sun. It's kind of bleaching things out, but it's looking pretty good. Now my shrimp plant has not bloomed yet. This generally blooms in the fall for me. This is sort of that traditional kind of maroonish variety. I have another variety I'll show you in a minute that's yellow, and it's blooming like crazy. Back here I've got a pink Turk's cap, which is native. And then, hello, Mrs. Oh, and then speaking of native plants, this is all popped up. These are wine cups, and that's a native wildflower. And they're all along here. I keep seeing them. They were all planted, and see, there's another one. They were all planted inside the bed, but clearly have seeded, at some point in the spring outside the bed. So I'll probably dig those up and put them back in the bed. Another surprise native is this pigeonberry. I thought this sucker was dead and gone. It is a little native plant. It is, I think it's a butterfly host, but don't quote me on that. This looks a little bit pink, but it's got some whiter flowers as well. There's one there and one here, and it will have little tiny red berries that birds will eat, hence the name pigeonberry. But I'm super excited about that. Meanwhile, next to it, the fall asters that were so spectacular last year, I think some of them have died. There's a little bit here and a little bit there, but that's on my list to buy some more. They were so beautiful that I'm going to buy some more of those. Now back here, this, they need a little trim. Some of them have gone brown, but this is called Southern Wood Fern. I finally remembered the name of it, and it is a native Texas fern. And so that's looking pretty well. It's doing nicely. It needs a trim, I think, a little bit, but I'm leaving it for now. I'm kind of leaving things and letting it cool even more before I go whacking away at things. This is a native viburnum called Walter's viburnum. It is in the sun in the front yard. It's probably half a day sun, and they're much more compact, and they bloomed off and on all year. These are much taller and goofier, but they're not really getting any sun. So I kind of feel like they're reaching up to get any sun they can, and that's why they're getting so tall. Now let me come around here. I'll show you a picture, show you up close the pink, sort of peachy pink Turk's cap there. Just very pretty color. And then the red here. And let's see if I can get that one in focus for you. That's a very sweet little plant, a sweet big plant. And I cut them down every spring. I cut them down way far, and they come back. They're very, very tough native plant. This beautiful vine is a Rangoon creeper. I don't have enough sun for it to bloom, but it sure looks great. It's a windbreak. It's a privacy screen. It's wonderful. And if you, I can't recommend it enough if you're buying a non-native, if you're not worried about native or non-native for your vines. I love this vine. Back here, that is a native wax myrtle, which needs a little work. I thinned it out. I'm trying to make it be multi-trunk with a puff at the top. And so I trimmed a lot of it. I limbed it up a lot, and it needs to be done again. But again, I'm kind of waiting for a lot of things to happen. And then here, these are my little purple irises, and they basically die down in the heat. And then in the spring, they kind of come back. So I'm not worried. They look awful, but they'll come back strong in the spring. So I don't really worry about it. Here is this is a oak leaf hydrangea. It didn't bloom this year. It's new. I just planted it in the last, 9 months, I guess, in the spring. But it's a native plant, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it looks beautiful. Even if it doesn't bloom, I think it still looks really beautiful. Now here is that shrimp plant that is blooming really, really well. It's sort of let me see if I can find one here. It's sort of a lime green yellowish, but the flowers, I think that's the bract right there. You guys, if you're a better botanist than I am, then tell me if I'm using my words right. I think that's the bract, but then the flowers on this variety are a pink, and it's pretty. It's a pretty one. Now let me go back here. I have a sweet spire. This is back here to remember, so I can remember to water it. This little sweet spire is a native Texas plant, and it is theoretically it will get bigger than this. It hasn't really grown. I forgot it was back here, so I didn't exactly water it during the drought, but it should have really nice fall foliage color on there. And then back in here, I've got a American beautyberry that has already bloomed. It has already set beautiful berries, and then the berries are gone. I don't know whether they've just fallen or whether hopefully birds have come and eaten all the berries off of that. But there were really beautiful berries, which I was excited about. My pots, some pots did fine. Other pots have new plants in them because the current plants all croaked on me. Oh, now here is the most exciting thing. This I have been trying to grow forever. And this is the first time, I don't know what took it a year, I planted these seeds in the spring. This is Jewels of Opar. Look at that. It's tiny, 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 teeny, tiny flowers. Let's see if I can get them in focus for you. Let's see if I can get it. Tiny flowers, pretty little leaves. I know that in other people's gardens it will self-sow all over the place, and I'll be darned if I could get it to grow anywhere. So I am thrilled with that. So happy. And I'm gonna do a little tour of pots maybe next week when it cools off, and I'm gonna put I will put my succulent theater back in its regular home. Hello, Mrs. Are you being a helper? What a little helper. Now I've got beautiful 4 o'clocks back here. I guess maybe they haven't opened yet. They're getting ready to. They're tiny, like a tiny little hibiscus almost. And they self-sow all over the place. I planted these once, and every year they come up. This is just the rootstock of a previous Meyer lemon that got killed in the freeze a couple of years ago, but I leave it, thorns and all. It's got wicked thorns for giant swallowtail butterflies. They will eat these leaves. They won't hurt it. If you have a beautiful citrus plant, the caterpillars look like, they're called bird poop caterpillars. They just look like little bits of bird poop. They will not hurt your citrus. Don't eat very much. They're not voracious eaters. And so if you see some, just leave them. You'll have an amazing black and yellow butterfly if you just let them be. This is another native oak leaf hydrangea. It's the same plant. I don't know why half of it has gone yellow and half of it has not. But I leave it there. If you have advice on pruning an oak leaf hydrangea, I would love to know. I think it grows on new wood. The flowers come on new wood, and that means I can prune it when I want to, and I won't cut off next year's flowers. But if you know, I would love to hear from an expert, because I'm always learning, and the gaps of my knowledge are enormous. Now I've got a couple of pipe vines. They're still going. They really haven't been utilized by pipevine swallowtail butterflies since the spring, so it's looking pretty ratty, but it's still alive. And then this is another kind of pipevine here that's looking a little ratty. I don't know whether it's got spider mites or what, but they don't look terrific, but they're okay. And as far as I understand, the caterpillars aren't picky. If they've got some little yuck on them, the caterpillars don't really mind. And then I've got a huge crinum that always falls over, which is kind of why I put it back here. And then my shell ginger, which is just still struggling to come back big and beautiful. A year ago, before the freeze in December of 2022, you couldn't see this leaf pile, and it's really just sort of lawn waste, garden waste pile now. The leaves are all way at the bottom, but you couldn't even see it because this was so big, and it's just not come back strong. Well, you guys, thank you so much for going on a walk with me and looking at all the shady side of the business. Mrs. Doubtfire and I wish you a wonderful week. I hope you're having fun in your garden, just like I am.